My name is Robert Juniper. I'm the subject of Nigel Hewitt's painting. He's been a friend for 25, 30 years, and we're close neighbours. So it was a pleasure for me to sit for this portrait. Like most children, I love to draw, and in my particular case, there wasn't a spare piece of paper or flyleaf in a book that didn't have pencil or crayon drawing on it. And when I was about 6 years old, I suppose, I won a prize in the Meriden is a wheat-belt town where I was born, the Meriden Royal Show. And it was just a simple little kid's drawing, but I was very chuffed about winning the prize. And that, I suppose, was the start of my artistic career. I left school when I was 14 years old. I got a scholarship to go to art school, which was in my town in Beckenham, in England. And I studied commercial art and industrial design, because to have the idea of being a painter was just not even thought of. The idea in those days was a painter was somebody who lived on bread and cheese and red wine and lived in an attic, and you had to have a source of income. So commercial art and industrial design seemed to be like reasonable sort of occupations. Well, I worked in that field for a couple of years, and my friend and mentor, John Lungi, who was the doyen of painting in Western Australia, he encouraged me to seek further studies, particularly in the Eastern States. He said I was wasting my talents on commercial art. So I took him up on that and went to Sydney for a year. And I didn't meet any of my peers like Olsen, Blackman. Being a humble art student in my early 20s, one didn't approach deities. So I worked there for a year in casual jobs, came back to Western Australia and had an exhibition of my paintings with a friend of mine, a sculptress, and my career took off from there. When I first came back to this country after spending 11 years in England during and just after the war, it was virtually a cultural desert. And it's gradually becoming more and more art conscious. It gives artists exposure to the public, and the public are interested in portraits because they can see that, oh, well, it looks like him, so that's probably all they demand of a portrait, where we artists demand more of portraits than that. First of all, it has to be a painting with aesthetic value, and the secondary thing is a likeness. I remember seeing some caves in the Kimberley quite recently, and the whole ceiling was decorated with little circle things, rather like, say, the Milky Way or something like that. But it was decorative. To them, it might have been a calendar or marking some passing of time or something like that. But primarily, to me, it looked decorative. And decorative used to be a sort of pejorative term. It was one of the sort of dismissal things that critics used to say, oh, it's just decorative. Well, I think if it's not decorative, what's the point of it? I could teach any intelligent person how to paint within half an hour, but not what to paint. I can tell you the technique and how to use the paints, but the inspiration and the subject matter has to come from the artists themselves. Yeah. National sort of events like, say, the Archibald Prize, immediately anybody who's interested or the general public become instant art critics, expressing their opinion as to whether the winner was worthy of the prize or that sort of thing. But it interests everybody because I think it's a basic sort of human need to have culture, like music, painting, sculpture. I like to think of back a few years to when Picasso painted a portrait of Gertrude Stein, and she said, "I don't look like that," and he said, "You will," meaning that she won't become to look like the portrait that he did, which was a very good one actually, but people will remember Gertrude Stein by Picasso's portrait. Personally, I wouldn't like to start off an artistic career right now because there are plenty of good artists, coming out of the woodwork.